Please get seated. We're starting soon again, up with the next session.
Sagen, schauen wir einfach mal, wie wir es mit der Zeit schaffen mit deinem Vortrag. Wenn Fragen kommen, machen wir noch welche, so ein, zwei. Und sonst können wir auch ganz am Schluss noch was machen. Also werden wir noch weiter auf dich zu.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please get seated. The next session, Hot Earth, Deep Sea, gonna start here. And I want to introduce to you, there's still talk.
Was? Ja, aber wir müssen.
Oh, Lisa Borda is playing the drums.
Wir wollen unbedingt spielen. Lass dich nicht bremsen.
Thank you. So that was Lisa Borda on the drums. Okay, now we're ready for the next session here, Hot Earth and Deep Sea. In tradition, we bring to DLD explorers showing us their work, what they do, how they explore the world. And I want to welcome Herbert Nitsch, very famous world record holder in freediving, not even one. I think it's, how many is it?
22.
22 world records in freediving. And he will tell us about his sport, his passion, and go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you heard, my name is Herbert Nitsch. I'm from Vienna, Austria. Started freediving about 10 years ago. It's become a passion, and since then, I try to go deeper, longer, farther, to explore my body's potential. Freediving, or also called apnea diving, it's not free diving because it's for free. And it's not jumping down from cliffs into the water, it's diving underwater on a single breath. There are several organizations worldwide which govern, educate teachers and give courses. And the biggest federation is called AIDA. They, about 99% of all the freedivers around the world belong to AIDA. It's Association Internationale pour le Développement de l'Apnée. It's based in Switzerland. And there are 6 competition disciplines. Additionally, there are 2 more disciplines which are just for world record attempts, since they're too dangerous and too complicated to organize in competitions. And just so you have some picture of what I'm talking about, here's a short video of a constant weight dive to 112 meters. Constant weight refers to you go down on a single breath, of course. You may take weight with you, but you have to bring them back up. This is why it's called constant weight. This is with fins. There's another discipline without fins. Usually people go down with a monofin, which is more efficient than stereo fins. In the old days, they went down with stereo fins, of course. This was in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt in 2007. World Championships are only every second year, individual World Championships. Usually you have to go very far out to get such a depth, but here in Egypt it's very close to shore. You got a specific time window to start the dive. It's only 30 seconds where you have to start. If you start before you're disqualified, if you start after you're disqualified, you really have to time exactly when you're ready to dive, which is a big task in itself. Here just start the countdown, and now leaving the surface, you have to kick hard to leave the buoyancy. But after a short while, only after like 15 meters, the buoyancy has become less because the air is compressed in the lungs, and therefore the buoyancy is gone. And around 20, 25 meters, I stopped swimming totally and just tried to relax as much as possible to consume less oxygen and just glide down into the deep. Of course, I still have to concentrate on equalizing my ears and the auscultation tubes, the sinus, of course. And this happens through taking air from the lungs in the mouth and from the mouth in the sinus and the auscultation tubes. Here I'm just dropping down. You see that I'm connected with the line, with a safety line. It's also to the roots. So in case anything happens, they can pull up the rope very quickly and bring me up with it, since it's too deep for divers to go down and rescue, also a lot too slow. You already see the view from the bottom plate. You see the camera housing has already a crack because of the pressure. Didn't make it. That was another camera which made it. I have to take a tag as proof that I have been down there. Also, I'm wearing official gauges which show the depth. And after leaving the bottom, I have to swim as hard as possible because I'm very negative down there to reach back to the surface. At that point, the muscles are starting to fail because they didn't get oxygen for quite a while. But you just have to keep on kicking because this is the only way you're going to get up. On the surface, the freedivers are waiting, and after a specific time, they are descending to meet me at a certain depth. This is, sounds very simple, but it's a lot safer actually than having scuba divers. Most of the scuba divers here are just for filming. My kick is gradually decreasing since the muscles are dying off. And in the very end, I even switched to breaststroking up. Soon after this, I'm meeting the safety free divers, which have come down already, also some cameramen. They meet me, pick me up, so in case anything goes wrong, they can retrieve me to the surface. And it looks nasty, a blackout, but it's actually not harmful at all. It's, you just need somebody to hold you above the surface until you start breathing again. But to make an official record, you have to remove your nose clip, your mask, give an OK sign, and say I'm OK within 15 seconds in that specific order to prove that you're conscious and you're clear in your mind. Well, a quick introduction, how you can dive over 100 meters. It's actually quite simple. Increasing apnea time. Well, it seems like this is the only factor there is. It's not, I can tell you, but increasing apnea time is the initial thing that is important. There are different ways of achieving that. Simply by holding your breath over a week, 1 hour a day, not at once, but in intervals, will increase your breath hold by 3 times easily. I do training on stationary bike at home or in a cross trainer and just breathe every 30 seconds and hold my breath in between on empty lungs. There are various different exercises to train it, but this gets a bit more complicated. Pressure adaptation is a big factor for deep diving. The pressure at, I'm saying now 214 meters, you're going to find out a little later why, is over 22 bars. In comparison to a car tire, there's 2 to 4 bars, so 22 bars is quite a pressure on the body. The body itself is mostly consistent of water, so that's no problem, but the lungs, the sinus, and the middle ear is filled with air, and this has to be compensated either by air or by water. I prefer to fill it with air, but this air has to come from the lungs, and thus the lung is squeezed and compressed a lot, and to counteract that, you have to adapt your lungs to allow the so-called blood shift. The blood goes from the arms to the core, and from the core to the blood vessels in the lungs, which is then reducing the residual volume, the volume that you cannot exhale. So the empty space is becoming smaller because of the blood entering the blood vessels, not the lung itself. Stress management, you will think, why would a freediver need stress management? Well, it's very simple. If you're in a training dive, there's not much stress except the stress you make yourself by the depth you set yourself to go to. But in a competition, you have a time window of 30 seconds where you have to dive, and you have to be absolutely dead calm, like in a sleeping state. Now that you're in a competition, you have one attempt every 2 years for the World Championship, and during this, cameras are pointing at you, judges are there, safety divers, spectators, and you have to be like waking up in the morning and like nothing is around you. So this is quite a difficult task, and this is also a reason why most of the freedivers are actually not in their youngest age, as you would expect from extreme sportsmen. Motivation. Why would somebody want to hold their breath for 10 minutes? Well, I can tell you it is challenging and it can be very enjoyable. Not necessarily only holding your breath, but what you can do with it. Freediving is not only about competitions, but 90% of my freediving is actually for recreational reasons. I also use my recreational freediving as part of my training, as it's a lot nicer to train while having fun than just training for the training. Here's a video of me diving along the Sisselgorm in Egypt. It's a wreck at between 25 and 40 meters deep. It was in the very beginning of my freediving career, when I didn't yet know how to hold my breath. But still, it gives enough room to dive and do what most recreational scuba divers do. And it's a lot more freedom because you can stay in the water a lot longer. Of course, you have to come to the surface now and then. But even this dive here is only a little more than a minute. I'm seeing half of the wreck already. And this was one dive out of, I think, 120 dives this day. So you can enjoy recreational freediving just where any scuba diver would dive. Since scuba divers are recreational scuba divers, are limited to 30 meters anyway. I snorkel to 50, 60 meters. And you can play around wrecks, reefs, caves, or even ice diving. Can be very fun. So, other than that, of course, exploring the underwater world, it's a lot more direct because the fishes are less scared of what you're doing there because the breathing is usually very loud and the fishes are simply scared, and going without apparatus, I guess they think you're one of them. Gliding through 3 dimensions, hardly anybody can enjoy that. I mean, being a pilot, you can enjoy it, but then you need all the plane around you to enjoy it, or free falling, but that also involves some risks and is only of short duration. Well, enjoying it, losing the urge to breathe, it is actually, most people cannot understand why you would want to hold your breath, but after a week of training, you don't have that urge to breathe anymore. It is there, but it's a lot less. So it's actually quite comfortable and relaxing not having to breathe for a while. Of course, after a while, you would want to breathe, but it's not like, I have to breathe now. It's like, okay, let's start breathing again. You have a huge performance increase. I've been giving courses for very regular people, smokers, overweight people, and they started off by holding the breath between 35 seconds and 2 minutes, and so averaging around 1 minute of breath hold. And after 2 days only, they reached between 2.5 and 4 minutes. So you have an increase which you don't have in any other sport. If you would compare this to running, you would be able to run 100 kilometers per hour within a week. So this increase in performance is just thrilling, and you would want to find out how much you can reach after that. For me, it was more to see where my limits are, and by trying to see what I can do, I went so far. I was so amazed that I wanted to see where I can go. And now I'm doing the sport for 10 years, and even after 10 years, I'm learning so much more what's happening inside the body. So it's a journey inside. You can control how the blood is flowing in your body, like it's concentrating in the lungs. You can train the adaptation mechanisms to diving. There's a natural adaptation to breath hold. When you hold your breath, your heart is slowing, the blood is moving differently in your body. And even the spleen is contracting, which is a recent study, to expel more blood, oxygenated blood, to the system automatically. And all these mechanisms you can train to work more efficient, and you can induce before diving. If you don't induce them before, there's no way to dive to great depths. So it's more like teaching your body of something he has forgotten. Now let's come to a little bit more extreme, going down with a sled. Sled is called the machine you go down in the discipline called No Limits. You can see me here on a very new design. It's a prototype. On the bottom, there is a fire extinguisher filled with lead, which is pulling me down. It's about 60 kilos, so it's quite hefty, and pulling me down with very high speed. It is actually twice the speed as all the other sled divers have dove before. Between my legs, there's a camera to witness that I'm not cheating. In my hand, in my left hand, I have a Coke bottle. This is not to take extra air with me, but for equalization reasons. In my right arm, I have a brake, and on my nose, I have a nose clip, so I don't have to hold my nose to equalize. On my eyes, there's a special mask where there's water underneath, but I can still see. And above my head, there's what we call it the cone head. It is non-compressible foam, which is buoyant, which is taking me back to the surface. Unlike the sleds before, we just used lift bags, which we filled with pressure air, but this was prone to many mistakes and problems with it, bursting hoses, bursting valves, lift bags ripping off and all that, so we tried to avoid this. So this is how it looks in total. And before we go to the dive, here's the dive profile. It's not just going down as fast as you can and going up as fast as you can. If you do that, you would have the same problem as scuba divers would have if they go too fast up, that nitrogen accumulation in the blood would cause serious problems. So on the left-hand side, you see the depth scale in meters from 0 to 220. On the bottom, you see the timeline in minutes, 0 to 4 minutes. At point A, in the left upper corner, is the start of the dive. At point B, is the so-called equex stop. The equex, I didn't give it a name, equalization extension tool, the Coke bottle. It only works with Coke. I tried different. It's basically a bottle which has attached a tube to the neck and holes at the bottom. It is filled with water when I leave the surface, and at 25 meters, I stop the sled and fill all my air into the bottle. So I exhale totally, and you see my face is kind of not so friendly. It's because I squeeze all air I have in that bottle. The reason is, at great depth, it is impossible to get the air out of your lungs later. So I exhale before, like other marine mammals, to allow me to equalize at great depth. Of course, then I have to train the lungs to withstand the negative pressure or counteract it with an extreme blood shift. Then it's going down with 3 meters per second, which doesn't sound very fast, but in the water, believe me, it is fast, and I have to wear some straps around my legs, which is keeping the water from going in. If that would happen, it would just basically blow up the suit, which would be rather uncomfortable because the water temperature down there is not that nice and warm anymore. At point C, at the bottom of the profile, I have to manually reach between my legs and pull the release for the fire extinguisher. Once I drop that, I'm going back to the surface. In addition, the whole rope is being pulled up by electric winches. So either they pull me up or I'm going up automatically anyway. So it's going up with 4 meters per second, which is also quite some speed. At point D, they stop the engines to pull up the rope and to allow the lungs to unfold again, and also to allow the blood to leave the lungs again. And that wasn't it. At point E, I have to stop the ascent for a so-called decompression stop. Usually divers do that on air or on oxygen or on other mixed gases, of course, but due to regulation, I have to do it on a breath hold, so I stay another 60 seconds before I reach the surface. I can already see it, but I cannot go up, otherwise would have serious problems. So, this is how it looks like. You can see me attach the hose of the Coke bottle. Here, I'm already packing air. This is a special breathing technique where I can actually press in extra air into my lungs. In total, I can top off my total lung capacity of 10 liters with another 5 liters on top of that. So in total, then 15 liters. And here it says it's 35, it's actually 25 meters. I stop the sled and fill the Coke bottle with air. This takes a while, approximately 20 seconds. And after that, it's going down without braking as fast as possible, as fast as the sled would go. It was 3 meters per second. If you go any faster, you need some active steering on the sled, which we didn't implement on this prototype yet. On the surface, they are monitoring the depth with sonars. This is also a new thing we implemented in the sport, because usually just people were on the surface and looking at their watch and seeing at what time the diver comes, and after that they could react, which of course, if they expect the dive to take 4 minutes, and they don't see him in 4 minutes, they only start it then, and then it takes another 2 minutes to get the dive up. So we save 2 minutes by having a constant control of where the diver is. Here you just saw the engines pulling me up from the bottom. Here's how I already reached the bottom, and now it's going quite fast up. At this point, I just have to relax as much as possible to save all the oxygen there is, because I will still need it for the decompression stop. This is pretty much real time, so I'm sorry it takes some time. A tech diver here with a lot of tanks. It was basically there to watch it, because there's no point of interfering there. They are checking the rope to see if there's any friction on the rope, and to feel what's happening. They can actually feel from the vibration on the rope what's happening. At this point, I'm already getting off the sled. The reason is because if there would be a technical malfunction on the surface, they would pull up the sled all the way to the surface. I would also be pulled to the surface, which I definitely have to counteract. So I'm getting off, because you have to trust your team, but not all the way. There can always go something wrong. So I'm getting off, and here you can see me holding on to the sled. I'm the only one with no fins, since there's no way I can reach the surface anyway from the bottom. Then after hanging on to the sled, I'm just waiting another 60 seconds, and during these 60 seconds, I'm very, very slowly going up to the surface to allow my lungs to unfold and reach normal volume again. Safety divers would also be coming down to bring me oxygen and to abort the dive if the dive for some reason is taking too long. So there's a detailed safety plan for every scenario that can happen. Of course, judges have to be present to ratify the record. International judges from another country. I have to give the protocol again. And then afterwards, of course, a doping test, and they check the videos. And after all that, they can say that the record is okay. Thank you. Well, this is not the end of the dive. I want to go deeper. This is a prototype of the new sled. It's supposed to be a lot faster. The reason to go faster is not because you can dive deeper because the air is limiting, but you have to decrease the time under 100 meters as much as possible due to buildup of nitrogen in the system. But it's actually even more stressful to go faster, because you have to train your body to react faster to the pressure change. I'm not quite sure how deep I will go. My eventual goal is 1,000 feet. That's 305 meters. I will not do that at one step. This year, we plan to dive to 250 meters. If it's going to look like this, I'm not quite sure. We have other prototypes in mind. If I'm going to reach 305 meters ever, I don't know. But maybe I'll also fly to Mars with it. You can play around in the water, make bubble rings. Thank you.
Thank you, Herbert. Herbert, thank you very much. I think one thing we have to mention, every time you say you're in deep troubles, meaning you're close to dying if something happens.
Not necessarily.
But not necessarily. There's a lot of free divers that already died.
But it is not as risky as people think. It's just people have been very reckless about their safety. And I'm giving a lot of thinking and about the safety. And this is why it took me a long time to actually start No Limit, because I wanted to make it as safe as possible.
Great. So I think we wish you all the best for your new record. And thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
And for questions, because we are quite tight in the schedule, maybe contact them directly. Later.
Yep.
But for the next presentation, I ask Fabian Cousteau on stage.
Yeah. You're getting kinky on me.
Welcome, Fabian.
Thank you.
Now we go on in the ocean. It's going to be a little bit more animals now, I think.
It'll be definitely more animals.
Definitely more animals.
But aren't we animals?
Aren't we animals? Fabian's working for Ocean Future Society. I think you do then the rest of the introduction because you're the best in doing it. And we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. I guess while they're working on my computer, do you need help with that? No? Okay, it's right there, right there. Thank you. Must be a PC guy. Are we, we're not up on screen yet. I think we're, yeah, okay. So, in the meantime, while we're mirroring the computer, most of you probably already know the gist of where I come from. My grandfather was a teacher and mentor, and the rest of the family as well. We had, oh, you can't start me off on this clock. Come on, you're cheating now. Okay. They show us how much time we have before we have to get off. Can I use this? Is this mine? Okay, good. The most valuable liquid, the most valuable element on this planet. We can do without fuel or anything else, but we can't do without this stuff. Okay. Are we up? We're not up. We're up down there. I hope you don't mind that I'm going to be speaking in English today. If you like, I could put on a French accent for reminiscence sake. Today, because of the time, I'm going to tease you. I'm going to tease you because there's volumes to share, and we're not going to have time to go through all of it. So I'm going to show you a condensed version of what I consider the family album, so to speak, and a couple of very short videos. I certainly hope that the late comedian George Carlin was wrong when he said that photo albums are as painful to watch as having a root canal. I should know I've had several of them. I'm going to put on the slideshow here. There we go. There. Can we bring that up back there? All right, I'm the only one that's going to get to see it. Technology. Oh, perfect. Great. Planet Ocean, as our unique little blue bubble should be called, is almost entirely covered in a liquid realm, leaving us a mere 29% of the planet's surface for earthbound creatures such as man. If this is not impressive enough, think of water as representing 99% of the world's total living space. Some 22 canyons, such as the Marianas Trench, can reach depths of almost 11,000 meters, dwarfing some of the tallest mountains on Earth, such as Everest at 8,850 meters, while the average global ocean depths hover around 3,800 meters. The pressure at the bottom is over 8 tons per square inch, or some 1,000 times that of what we endure on the surface. Enough pressure to compress a styrofoam cup the size of a small building into a peanut. Herbert, I'm glad we're not made of styrofoam. This water world represents a volume of approximately 1.3 billion cubic kilometers. For those still not impressed, I'll appeal to your treasure hunting aspirations. There's enough gold suspended in our world's oceans to give every man, woman, and child over 4 kilos of the yellow substance. I knew that would catch some of your attention. I saw a few people writing this down. But gold isn't the only form of richness in our oceans. As a matter of fact, marine and coastal environments house over 97% of all species on this planet, from the smallest zooplankton to the largest of animals, such as the blue whale. They all call the ocean planet home. Seemingly endless discoveries lie in wait in the watery depths. Thanks to inventions such as the aqualung, or scuba, as some of you may know it, we need only to break away from our earthly bonds to slip temporarily into the weightless world and seek out that which tantalizes our curiosity. With everything that seems to have been explored, some might dare to ask, what is left to discover? Well, thank you. To this, I simply reply, if we are to take into account marine exploration worldwide that has taken place over the past centuries, the resulting sum would come in at somewhat less than 5% of our oceans in total. This in and of itself is very good news indeed, since I can look forward to some job security for a long time to come. This place of liquid magic was my classroom growing up. One of the most influential teachers, my grandfather, Jacques-Yves Cousteau, had a mantra. He would say, allons voir. Translated, this means, let's go see. It is with this curiosity to go look at what's around the corner, or in this case, what's around the next coral head, that has infused insatiable appetite and discovery. Throughout the years, expeditions have taken my family around the world to places like Papua New Guinea, the Amazon, the Arctic, the Antarctic, the Indian Ocean, and so on. You might have noticed we're not a normal family. However, that being said, none of us had grown gills quite yet, although that would be an extremely useful adaptation. Necessity brings innovation, as they say. Like most little boys, I was fascinated with sharks. At the age of 7, I snuck into a movie theater on a cruise ship, against my parents' wishes, of course, to see a movie called Jaws. I walked out of there puzzled rather than scared. The shark in the movie was portrayed in a way that was the polar opposite of what I had learned and known. And although I'd probably have forgotten all about the movie shortly thereafter, its repercussions have resounded in the annals of time and in the minds of people worldwide. To this day, its effects are still felt in the media, often warping perception of these scavenger fish for general populace around the world. The shark, the great whites in particular, have been forever shackled to a dark and notorious reputation as demons. The word shark, as a matter of fact, is said to be the #1 most feared word in any language. To compound the problem in recent years, the demand for shark fin soup, due to its mystical properties, has resulted in a slaughter of an estimated 80 to 200 million sharks per year. It's not hard to imagine what impact this will have. I wonder if the demand would be so high if consumers knew that these tasteless fins were full of mercury, arsenic, PCAs, PCBs, etc. A couple of years back, I grew frustrated with the hype and decided to find that I'd go beyond the shark cage to observe these animals with a different approach. Traditional filming of sharks from cages and open circuit with bait bringing them in contribute to a predictably unnatural behavior. Being a longtime fan of the Belgian bande dessinée Tintin, I remember one of my favorite episodes, Le Trésor de Rackham le Rouge, or the Red Rackham's Treasure. I wanted to mingle with these animals as one of them, and the submarine portrayed within that bande dessinée seemed like the perfect vehicle to slip amongst them undetected. Creating a one-man submersible that moved like a shark and was silent had never been done before and required the help of an unusual and dedicated crew, which I call the pirate crew. It is thanks to their dedication and imagination that it became reality. We faced many challenges and failures during those 4 months in Isla Guadalupe, a small desert island lost in the Pacific some 350 kilometers off the Mexican coast. But in the end, the experiment was a success on both a technological level and also a viable observation platform. Although I don't know if Raffaello is here tonight, I could have used his engineering skills. It would have made it a much simpler transition. The result was an ocean documentary that is a little bit grittier to address the mainstream audience and has been broadcast on CBS primetime, something that hadn't been done or seen on the US network in over 30 some odd years. So without too much further ado, I'd like to actually show you a 4-minute teaser of this show. There we go. If technology works. There we go. No, we don't want it in iTunes. I'll tell you, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There we go. Is there sound?
What does it take to see through the eyes of a demon? Courage or madness? What does it take to see through the eyes of a demon? Courage or madness?
Sounds like we have an echo.
So why get in this thing? Why? The answer is why.
No, the answer is why not?
Safety is the biggest issue because no one has ever
see through the
put a diver
eyes
down with a
of
great
demon?
white and then tried to promote an attack.
Courage or madness?
One of the things that I really...
Sorry, guys. It seems to be an echo. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to show this on traditional DVD media. When all else fails, go back to the old stuff. It works. There we go. Macs aren't supposed to do that. Okay. Oh, we still have plenty of time. That's good. Or not. Okay. Seems like we may not. Oh, okay. Now we may be actually able to tease you. All right. See, this is what happens when one doesn't check things out beforehand. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We will now run the show. Yeah. You want to play it from back there? We could do that. I think that would be much better. Yeah, there was an echo going on there, which was rather distracting. I think I'll continue while we're waiting for Mind of a Demon to start up. As you got a little taste of it, it is a little bit grittier than what we normally do. But in this modern day and age of computers and short attention spans, it's much more conducive to the modern day audience of networks. In the meantime, these last several years, my sister and I have joined our father at Jean-Michel Cousteau over at Ocean Future Society and the Ocean Future Society team on a myriad of expeditions around the globe. They have resulted in an ongoing television series called Ocean Adventures that's broadcast on PBS in the States, in France 2 and France 3 in France, and National Geographic everywhere else. As our explorations continue to venture into the areas that man has never been, we're now starting to see signs of human impact. The voyage to Kure, for example, is a 1,200-mile oceanic adventure to explore the northwest Hawaiian Islands. During the voyage, we discover a wealth of flora and fauna and a healthy ecosystem that graces the remote part of the world. But even here, on the island of Kure, 1,200 miles from any civilization, human debris 8 feet high clutters the beaches and chokes baby albatross. The 2-hour film screened at the White House was powerful enough to motivate President Bush to declare the Northwest Hawaiian Islands a national monument. This is no small victory. But we have much left to do. As of today, all marine sanctuaries worldwide combined reflect less than 1% of our oceans. Scientists predict that we need to protect between 5 and 10% of the global waters. So we have a lot of work. This year, 2 new films will be airing in April of 2009 on PBS and soon after worldwide. The first follows beluga whales in the Arctic, taking a look at these canaries of the sea, so to speak. We come to find that they are an essential role for both ocean and land, and that climate change and disappearing Arctic ice are altering the migration and affecting everything that depends on them. The second special takes a new and updated look at orcas. New research is demonstrating the complexities and similarities to human beings. Their intelligence, deductive reasoning, the fact that they're mammals, communities, social structure, distinctive languages, and the fact that they're at the top of the oceanic food chain mirror the human being on land. Unfortunately, some communities are now being affected by pollution and disappearing food sources. They're getting diseases such as cancer that were unknown to orcas before. If they reflect human beings in almost every way, what does that mean for us? Are we ready for the video? Okay, so let's do that video.
What does it take to see through the eyes of a demon?
Better.
Courage. Or madness?
So why get in this thing? Why? The answer is why.
No, the answer is why not?
Safety is the biggest issue because no one has ever put a diver down with a great white and then tried to promote an attack.
One of the things that I really wanted to do is make this as stealthy and as realistic as possible.
You've made this way more complicated than you need to.
This is a problem. This is a real problem. This one scares me.
This is a mess.
This shark, this submarine, has commanded and dictated everything around it.
Shark takes this and cuts our lines, at least we can find it.
You could have just stuck that thing in my ass and you wouldn't even need the shark to find it.
I can redo this, I love it.
It's definitely not an easy thing to do, and it's not a real safe thing to do.
I don't think that this whole operation has a real
safety feature in it from the start.
I said anybody who wants to go in there, they got to be nuts.
If you panic, you'll probably die.
Fear.
Because you know there's stuff out there, the big stuff, but you can't see it, but they might be able to see you.
And sharks smell fear. They smell it. And I'm weak, so they totally eat me first.
You have the possibility of oxygen toxicity hit, cause you to convulse, hypoxic, you'll have excess CO2.
Hey, do you have any kind of signal? I mean, if you do get in trouble and we can't talk to you, I mean, is there anything we can do?
The thing I'm worried about is not the sharks. I'm worried about human error.
You seem like you want to get in that shark just...
I don't want to get in that shark. I just like to get this fucking movie over with. I gotta go home.
The thing I'm worried about is not the sharks. I'm worried about human error.
I have no idea. Con, can you hear him?
I can't hear him.
Try.
I have a really hard time to understand what they say.
What? I can't hear you.
Be careful what you wish for when you step into the unknown, you enter the mind of the demon.
Captain Jack, this is Zodiac, over.
Captain Jack here, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Peter. We've lost him here. We're heading north, but we think he might have gone over the edge.
How are we going to find him, for Christ's sake?
Well, he needs to bail out of that thing.
Yeah. Problem is, he's going to come up in the midst of sharks.
Where is he?
But turn off that light. I can't see a damn thing out here. This is serious now.
Okay. No, Darth Vader was not my father. As you can see, there were a lot of trials, and 50% of the time the propulsion system didn't work, or the shark sub sank to the bottom. It was quite a logistical nightmare, and of course, in some cases, rather risky. I wonder if the pilot actually made it back. So, I think where we're at right now, and I'm looking at the clock, so I'm going to hurry this up, is I don't want to leave you with a sense of doom and gloom, such as talking about 25% of the 44 billion pounds of bycatch, which is discarded every year, or that we stand to lose 40% of our corals due to, of course, the global climate change and the acidifying of the oceans. You know, I mean, I could go on and on about fish stocks being depleted by 50% worldwide, or pelagic fish such as tuna and billfish being depleted by 90% worldwide. This is all very important information, obviously, but it's equally important not to freeze or look away, but to look at what can be done to purge our bad habits. Adaptation, diversification, and efficiency are fundamental lessons from nature that we must remember to take back into our lives on both the personal and the business levels. Companies such as Lexus, for example, are initiating programs like the Eco Challenge, which motivates high schoolers to find and implement innovative solutions within their communities. Schools such as the New York Harbor School, for example, are focusing attention on science and environmental topics for the future generations so that they can be better stewards of our planet. New programs such as NBC Today Show are dedicating several days, a season actually, for broadcasting on environmental topics. And companies, newly formed companies such as Ocean Nutrition, are taking the leftovers of the anchovy fisheries, which are normally discarded into a dump, and reusing and extracting the nutrition for human consumption. Innovative thinking and technology for environmental solutions often come with economic benefits. We must show our support in our actions as a global community in order to stem the tide of our future. This is our one and only life support system. As my grandfather used to say, people protect what they love. What more can we love than a healthy blue planet and all that it represents? I'd like to leave you now with one of the magical moments from our RNGC world. If we could hold that. Oh, you're not even seeing the beautiful slides they're going through.
Thanks a lot.
And here I was thinking I was already done.
Thanks for coming. Now our next speaker, Sebastian Copeland, well-known photographer, and we're looking forward to your perspective on our planet Earth. Yeah, we get started soon.
Outstanding.
It is on the, you just changed it, yeah, there we go. There we go. Hi there. My name is Sebastian Copeland. I'm a photographer and an environmental advocate. I've traveled the poles, north and south, the Arctic and the Antarctic on numerous occasions. And I've done that because nothing communicates climate change in a way that is as clear and as easily stated as melting ice. The poles are regions that are melting at rates that are unprecedented. On average, about twice the global average. And it has become very clear that the activities that are being perpetuated by the industrial nations are having a direct influence and a direct impact on the global warming of this planet. Why are those regions warming up faster than the rest? It's relatively simple to understand. The poles receive the least amount of light from the sun by virtue of the angle of the planet. But because of the greenhouse effect, the CO2s that get trapped in the atmosphere, that temperature gets distributed in a way that is a lot more even. And therefore, it's no longer the direct sun that is heating those environments, but it's just the global average that is warming up and rising. And it is having a profound effect and impact on those regions, the Antarctic and the Arctic. The Arctic and the Antarctic act essentially like barometers for the rest of the world. What they do is they cool down the planet by distributing the cool water, and through the various currents like the Gulf Stream, they bring cold water down to the tropics, cooling down those regions. And then the Gulf Stream brings back warm water towards the regions like North Europe or like places like here, and temperate the influence and the impact it has on those regions from the cold influence of the Arctic. They help regulate seasons. They help regulate crop cycles that have been in place essentially for the last 15,000 years. And in changing, those regions have a profound impact on the way that our lives will be in the future. Upon traveling to Antarctica in particular, I developed a greater understanding of the relationship we have to the rest of the planet, that we are one in 30 million species, no more, no less. I did a mission in the Arctic in defense of the Inuit, essentially placing a face to global warming. In 2005, I went with an organization I work with called Green Cross International, which is the US arm of President Gorbachev's Green Cross International, Global Green in the USA. And with my friend John Quigley, we implemented the image that you see over there by essentially placing 1,000 Inuit elders and kids on the ice so that their bodies would spell the letters SOS. In 2006, I decided to return to the ice, this time in Antarctica, to duplicate the image. By virtue of the location, Antarctica is a little more complicated to implement, so we were reduced in our numbers, but did essentially the same kind of ideas. These are people that were positioned on the ice so their bodies would spell the letters SOS, and shot it from the air. I've implemented a number of different programs. This summer I did an initiative called Pax Arctica, which brought kids essentially to the Arctic as young ambassadors to the Arctic. It was a mission that was sponsored by my friends at Napapiri, as well as my friends at Hewlett-Packard. And the idea was to sensitize the younger generation about the impacts of climate change on these distant and faraway places. And with them, we traveled to the northernmost part of the Canadian Arctic, the continental Arctic, to the Warthond ice shelf, which is one of the areas that is being endangered right now and is seeing unprecedented breaking and cracking. This is the Warthog ice shelf crack that we actually discovered this summer with the kids. We traveled there and found a new, freshly developed crack, which was reported in the international press as the latest breaking of the Warthog ice shelf. The mission was developed to sensitize kids, give them a interactive experience with Inuits and doing homestays with Inuits, meetings with scientists doing field work, and as well, of course, having a personal and interactive experience in the Arctic itself by essentially camping. And so we traveled for about a month across the Arctic with kids from Kenya, Italy, Germany, France, the US, and an Inuit child as well. What was really important and relevant about this particular mission, before I go into the rest of the work that I do, was the support that I got from companies who understood the value of communicating to the greater world on issues pertaining to our planet, because these issues which we're facing will have a critical impact on our lives, and most importantly on the lives of our children and on our future. And while I'm going to be playing a slideshow now of some more beautiful images from my trips to Antarctica and to the Arctic, I would like still to draw your attention on the topic, the conversation that I'll have about what is really happening over there. Antarctica is extraordinary. It's a landscape that has never seen a human footprint before 1821. It's truly another worldly continent. It's separated by a body of water, so it's never seen indigenous human life. It is covered virtually entirely by ice, some of it, in fact, most of it over a mile deep. Its average elevation is about 2,000 feet. Make a long story short, it's unlike any other place in the world. And when you travel there, what is most striking is how vibrant an ecosystem it is, operating completely outside the human influence, and having done so for millions of years. That, to me, was the most humbling experience I had in Antarctica, because we're so accustomed to shifting, controlling, altering, polluting, destroying the environments that we live in, that it's really interesting to travel to an environment that has thrived essentially outside the human influence and is virtually, or at least on the surface, is untouched. Of course, the concept of being untouched is a bit of a misnomer, because activities that are being perpetuated now thousands of miles away are having a profound impact on this environment, which has seen the greatest consecutive ice loss in the last 25 years, especially in the sea ice that surrounds it. As you probably hear, because it makes the press on a very regular basis, and sadly it desensitizes people, the ice shelves there have been breaking at an unprecedented rate. In fact, 10 of the most major ice shelves in Antarctica have disappeared in the last 50 years, including, as you may have heard just recently, the Wilkins ice shelf, which is one of the last remaining large ice shelves in Antarctica, is holding by a sliver of ice and is anticipated to be breaking any day now. The relevance of ice shelves, incidentally, which are these blocks of ice that hug the coastline, ice shelves are the protection barriers to interior glaciers. Glaciers have a tendency, because gravity pulls them, have a tendency to pour into the ocean, and glaciers are what constitute the threat of ocean rise. This principle of the ocean rising and endangering 80% of the coastal cities, 80% that is of the population that lives in coastal cities, is directly related to glaciers melting, because glaciers sit on land, and as they melt, they pour into the ocean and add to its volume. Antarctica, by the way, holds 90% of the ocean's fresh water in frozen forms and has the capacity in its entirety to raise ocean levels by over 60 meters. That figure shouldn't necessarily be the actual point of threat, because the likelihood of that happening is not great. And it's not great certainly within neither our lifetime, but certainly not our century either. What is very likely, however, is that the sliver of land that extends from Antarctica to South America, which is called a peninsula. That sliver of land holds enough water in frozen form in glaciers to raise ocean levels by 20 feet and possibly by the end of this century. In fact, a conservative estimate by the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change at the United Nations, predicts that there will be, at the very least, 1.5 to 4 feet of rise by the end of the century. And these are very, very conservative estimates. They're conservative because the rate of change that has been witnessed in regions like Antarctica or the Arctic has been unprecedented to the extent that it's confounded experts. A 4 feet rise, to give you an idea, 1 foot of rise loses 100 foot of coastal land. 4 feet of rise would lose 400 feet of coastal land, and so it goes. What is relevant here again is that 80% of the world's population lives in coastal areas, that areas like Bangladesh, like many areas in China, like Florida as we know it, like the Netherlands near here. All these reasons, these low rising elevation coastal environments would be devastated by those rising ocean levels. And if we examine what happened with Katrina, an environment that was devastated by a surge and by the hurricane, and we saw it displacing 300,000 people, and we witnessed the chaos that ensued as a result of it. Not just chaos because people lost their homes, but because people lost their minds. The crime, the social unrest, the anarchy that resulted from one city that was displaced by 300,000 people. And the conservative estimate by the UN today is that by the end of this century, there will be probably about 600 million people who will be displaced. I don't have to draw a picture of what that represents in terms of social and international unrest. There will be exodus of people leaving their homelands, claiming residence on other people's lands, seeking alliances with different political environments, different tribal environments, and whatnot. And this is truly a recipe for an unprecedented human unrest. The Arctic, which is a very, very different environment, because it's an ice shelf, essentially. It's a frozen body of water, has seen the most drastic changes of any environment on the planet. It loses, on average, about 500,000 square miles of sea ice in the summer. Essentially like the great lungs of the Earth, it expands and contracts with each seasonal cycle. In the summer, it shrinks. In the winter, it expands. But each of these cycles has been shrinking. And most importantly, the ice that constitutes the Arctic, which in 1989 was made of 80% of multi-year ice, that is, ice that was there for at least 10 years or more, has been reduced this year to 3%. 20 years ago, 80% multi-year ice. This year, 3%. 80%, 3%. What that means, the multi-year ice has to do with the structural integrity of this environment, the solidity, if you will, of that temperature over there. And as this ice recedes and as it melts, it creates an exponential effect, which many of you probably have seen Al Gore's movie or a number of different news reports, understand the exponential rate of this melting as it happens. The sea gets exposed, it absorbs the heat instead of reflecting it, and the process gets accelerated in this fashion exponentially. By 2013, most scientists believe that the sea ice in the Arctic could very likely be all but gone in the summer months. This is something that has not happened in at least 1 million years. Possibly in about 5 years, a ship may be able to cross the Arctic from Europe to Russia. The devastation that this will have on the Greenland glaciers, which, like the Antarctica Peninsula, holds enough ice to rise the ocean levels by about 20 feet, is hard to even comprehend. What is even most hard to comprehend is that the prediction of the loss of the Arctic summer ice by 2013 was predicted 1.5 years ago to happen in 2025, and 6 months prior to that to happen in 2050. In other words, within the last 2 years, scientists and computer models have predicted that the Arctic sea ice would all but be gone within 50 years and readjusted their estimation within 2 years to think that this could actually happen within 5 years. This is how dire the situation is. And while I travel these extraordinary places, my intent is to sensitize people to the beauty of it, but mainly to educate them on how fragile and precarious this environment is. And so how does it relate to us? Well, our world is shrinking. It's shrinking by virtue of our ability to travel faster, to communicate better, but mainly it's shrinking because our activities are being perpetuated in fashions that are impacting these far and away regions. When I traveled to the Arctic in 2005, I met with Sheila Watt-Cloutier, who is the international chair of the Inuit Circumpolar Conference, the governing body of the Inuits, if you will. And she shared with me that Inuit babies had been traced with toxicity that were traced to persistent organic pollutants, which are essentially like heavy metals and PCBs and whatnot, are things that we find in industrial wastewater or agricultural runoffs. And of course, what was striking about it is that there is no POPs in the Arctic. And so what really was traced back to is that those industrial water and agricultural runoff that make their way into the groundwater and then into the riverbeds are being absorbed by fish, and they're insoluble carcinogens. They're very difficult to break down. Once they get into the fatty tissues of any being, it's very, very difficult to take them out. So these fish would make their way into the rivers and get eaten by larger fish that would make their way up to the mouth and get into the ocean and get carried into the Gulf Stream, get eaten by the seals, itself a staple of the Inuit diet. And the mothers would poison their babies with the blood cord or their nursing milk. How is that relevant to a climate dialogue? Well, quite simply because of the relationship of cause and effect. That activities that are being perpetuated from thousands of miles away are having such a profound impact on these far and away regions. And so for that reason, I encourage all of you as business leaders to take stock of the responsibility that you have. If you're here today, it's because in one fashion or another, you are trendsetters, you are influencers. You have either economic power or social influence, political reach perhaps. And while you spend all of your care and all of your personal resources to educate your children, to create for them a future, to pay for their education, the one thing that is missing is to really understand what is their future going to look like. And the most important thing that you can do for your children and for their future is to invest in a renewable and a sustainable market today. Because today we are truly at a crossroad in the nature of our existence. We are either going to be remembered as a virus, one which spreads with no care and no understanding of the impact and the influence that it has on the greater good, or will imply a conscience, which is the one thing that separates us from the animals, and we'll make that moral judgment, and we'll take those difficult decisions, and we'll examine how individually each one of us can have an impact on the world that we live, whether it is to change the fleet of company cars that we have, whether it is to replace the energy grid or the power consumption of our buildings, whether it is to educate our employees about their individual impact, what they can do, each one of them, whether it is to educate the customers and the consumers to reduce the carbon footprint, to reduce the carbon footprint of the factory lines, to support organizations like my sponsors, whether they be HP or Napapiri or IWC, companies who understand the value of investing in programs that educate people. And if you're here today, it's because you're curious. And there's nothing that you should be more curious about but the way in which you can influence this planet for future generation. Thank you very much for your time. Well, there is nothing quite like talking about Antarctica to lead into the next panel, which I have the pleasure of moderating, and that is to introduce my friend and an extraordinary explorer in his own right, and that is Mike Horn. Mike Horn is currently at the South Pole on an extraordinary journey. He has a mission called Pangaea, which is also the name of a ship that he's built. And Mike is traveling essentially around the world by ship, by foot, by bicycle, and by any means available except anything motorized to make an impact and to sensitize people on, again, the protection of this planet and the protection of our environment. Mike Horn is 42 years old. He's a South African adventurer. He has swum down the Amazon. He's that crazy guy that swam down the Amazon. Unbelievable. I've done some crazy things. I mean, but this guy's really out of control. Since 2008, he has started this expedition with the support of his sponsor, Mercedes-Benz. And for 4 years, essentially, is going around the world. And he's created a program called the Young Explorers. His trip will take him essentially around 100,000 kilometers, wandering across the globe. And at the same time, having built that ship, the 44-meter sailboat that you just saw on these photographs, he's also introducing his world to children and young people across the globe. His objective is to share his knowledge, his experience with the generations to come, and to explain the beauty and the variety, as well as the activities that can be done in order to protect the planet. Themed Explore, Learn, and Act, groups of youths have visited him in 12 designated locations. And as I said, they're called the Young Explorers. Have a look at this little film that we have here.
In the desolate, icy expanses of Antarctica, the expedition of adventurer Mike Horn begins. 4 years and approximately 100,000 kilometers are ahead of him. Young people from around the world will join him.
Ever since I was a child, I always wanted to go to places that nobody wanted to go. And now I want to share this experience with the younger generation and teach them how to conserve it for the future. And this is what the project is all about.
With untiring dedication, Mike Horn has worked for several years to turn his dream into reality. His pride and joy, and also the heart of the expedition, is a 35-meter-long sailing yacht named Pangaea. For 4 years, the boat will cruise the world oceans, from the tropics to the Arctic. Pangaea can handle even the toughest conditions. The adventure starts in Switzerland for this project. At a training camp, Mike Horn prepares a group of young adults for the expedition. Only the physically and mentally fit will endure the challenges of the Antarctic continent. At the end, 6 of the 12 participants match the tough criteria. In Ushuaia, the southernmost city in Argentina, the expedition starts toward Antarctica. The young explorers arrive filled with joyful anticipation. The greatest challenge of their young lives is about to begin. As Pangaea heads out to sea, the young explorers have no idea what might be ahead of them. A severe snowstorm and thick ice layers render any work on deck almost impossible. Even the toughest sea dogs are held in awe when Antarctica slowly reveals its unique landscape the next morning. Now the research can begin for our young explorers. Activity takes over aboard the ship. Impatiently, the 16 to 20-year-olds are waiting for the tasks ahead of them. The first job is to take unspoiled snow samples. The size and moisture of the snowflakes provide information on development of the ice and the consequences of global warming. New findings are supposed to sharpen the environmental awareness of these young students.
To get the young explorers back on the boat.
After 2 weeks in ice and snow, civilization appears to be far, far away.
It's done something inside. It's something. It's a hard thing, you know. So when you see that something in its rawest form, you get a love and respect for it. So I think by going there, you'll change there, and you can't go back to normal life. It's not possible.
The first leg of the Pangaea expedition is complete. Mike Horn is now trekking alone toward the South Pole. In 3 to 4 months, he will rejoin his team, and a new group of young explorers will also be on board.
Well, as we've seen with these great impressions, we actually have one of Mike's young explorers here with me. Please welcome on stage Alexandra Lidilli.
Thank you.
How are you? Here, come sit down. Alexandra was chosen as one of Mike's young explorers. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself, Alexandra?
Hello, I'm Alexandra, so I'm 17 years old and I come from Loyal. And I'm at school. I study at school in my last year normally, and that's all. I love environment, and that's
How did you get familiarized with Pangaea?
I found out about Pangaea when Mike Horn came in Loyal, when I went to his conference. And I always been interested in environment and social topics, so I was fascinated by Mike Horn and Spirit right away, and that's why I sent my application to Pangaea via internet, and I spent 11-day preparation camp in Châteaudet, Switzerland, in the Mike Horn Expedition Center.
What did you do in preparation there?
The program includes very different topics, such as physical fitness and scientific technologies for measuring snow. And we also learned to drive to eco-friendly driving with to the point of the Mercedes-Benz Day, and yes, it was very good.
It was fun.
Yeah. Yes.
And then you got selected as one of 6 people, and then you made your way down to Antarctica, right?
Yes.
So did you go? You must have gone through the Drake Passage then, yeah?
Yes.
Did you have the Drake Lake or the Drake Shake?
Drake Lake.
The Drake Lake. Wow.
Yes.
Drake Passage is the body of water that separates Antarctica from South America, and there's an old maritime diction. They say that below 50 degrees there's no law, and below 60 degrees there's no God. And Antarctica begins at about 70 degrees latitude south, and the Drake Passage is one of the most treacherous bodies of waters in the world. In fact, they say that there's about 3 ways to get it, and I got it all 3 ways, incidentally. You either have the Drake Lake, and it's a very calm, very easy sort of passage, or you have it so bad that you think you're about to die, and then the third speed is it's so bad that you wish you were dead. So luckily, though, it sounds like you got the Drake Lake.
Yes.
So that's That's a lot better for you. Did you get seasick at all?
No, no. Fortunately, I was not seasick, and it was better because everyone on the boat, the others young explorers were seasick, and yes, it was funny. But
it's funny to see people seasick. This must be a French thing again, you know. What was a typical day on the Pangaea? What did you do there?
We did. The adventure began from Ushuaia, and on the boat on Pangaea to Trinity Island, one of the Shetland Islands, and unfortunately, we had a big storm on Trinity Island, so we were obliged to change our plans, and we went to the Charco Bay on the Atlantic Peninsula, and where we spent a night in a tent.
You spent a night in the tent.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. And how's life now that you've come back? What do you bring back in terms of impressions from your experience in Antarctica?
I felt very bad when I come back home because, you see, we spent a lot of time with Mike Horn and his team and with the other young explorers, and to come back to the reality was a shock. I was yes, really changed, and now I can share my experience and with everybody around me, and it's something. It's a good feeling to can say that everyone can contribute to a healthy environment, and it's not so difficult just to have the.
Do you plan to share your photographs and do any type of presentation in school or anything like that?
Yes, I have many projects, and after the holidays, I will spend my time with kids and in my school too, in high school, to share all this experience to the
with the
younger.
other kids. Yeah, that's one of the really important aspect which I was talking about relative to the program that I did, which was the Young Ambassadors of the Arctic. Mike's doing this Young Explorers program, and what's really interesting about it is having kids like Alexandra who have these experiences come back and essentially become, in their own way, social influencers. They go back to their schools, present these pictures to their classes, do presentations and whatnot, and in that respect become advocates within their peers. And this is how we start this arduous and difficult process of how to shift a mentality towards a market transformation into a sustainable future and an economy. Well, it's great to have you with us today, Alexandra, and thank you for stopping by. We actually have as well a surprise. I did a conversation with Mike, which we recorded yesterday. The reason it's not live is because he's actually at the South Pole right now, and so we were testing the equipment and went through some difficulties in order to get this recording, but we're going to play it for you right now, and please be a little tolerant of the bad sound quality and try to make up in the gaps where you don't understand it. But let's start to roll this this tape, and I will actually ask the questions in the way that I did with Mike when I spoke to him. So, are we ready over there? Yep, very good. So, Mike, you've spent 2 months on the ice. You must be very, very cold. I've been on the ice for very extended periods of time, in -60. You don't take showers for weeks on end. How do you feel, and where are you now? He's so cold he can't speak. See what I mean? It was very difficult to get the recording. And it seems even harder to get the playback. Anyway, this is what happens when you travel in wind, and it's primarily all the moisture around his face is primarily actually the moisture, the perspiration that comes out. And in minus 60 or minus 40 actually temperature, you could take a piping hot cup of water and toss it in the air, and by mid-weight, it'll already be frozen. Needless to say, if you pee, it'll be frozen before it reaches the ground as well. So, yeah, working. So, Mike, how are you, buddy?
Sorry, I must be at the bottom of the world. After being on the ice for 2 months and being traveling over 1,400 kilometers, being on the South Pole, coming all the way up from the ocean, I'm feeling strong. I haven't had any running water, meaning I had no bath or no change of clothing in 2 months. And hopefully, if everything goes well and the wind conditions get better into my favor, I can be back in Painter Hills in more or less 5 days. So at this stage, I'm closing into the end of the expedition, and everything went very well until today.
And how does a typical day look for you right now in Antarctica?
Well, there's no typical day really in Antarctic. One day differs a lot from the next day. As Antarctica is one of the coldest, windiest continents on the Earth, I have to travel over different terrain, meaning in the start of the expedition, I would wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock and walk for more or less 10 hours to cover a distance of more or less 25 to 26 kilometers, as I have to cross a lot of crevasses and I have to go up in altitude, as the South Pole is very close to 3,000 meters in altitude. I have to come up from sea level. So today, after 2 months on the ice cap, I'm walking 14 to 15 hours a day in very thick snow, where there's very less crevasses than the start, because I'm right on top of the plateau, and it could be sunny, it could be windy, but weather changes extremely rapidly in Antarctica.
You've been on the ice for the last 60 days, and probably since you've been gone, you haven't heard, but in recent days, there's been increased concern and, in fact, imminent threat that the Wilkins ice shelf is about to break up. What, if any, have you seen in terms of ice melting or indications of climate change on your expedition right now?
I think the future of our planet is in the hands of industry, and I have chosen Mercedes-Benz as a main partner or main sponsor simply because of their development of battery cars, of their development of the blue technology, of their development of the fuel cells. And to have that technology and that knowledge that we can spread around the world to the younger generation that will be driving these type of cars in the future is very important for our planet's existence.
You've gone to the North Pole, the South Pole, you've swum across the Amazon, you've climbed all these summits. With Pangaea, you want to share this experience with younger generations and bring your message to the world. And why have you chosen Mercedes-Benz as your partner for this expedition? Because they were the perfect partner.
The future of our planet is in the hands of industry, and I have chosen Mercedes-Benz as a main partner or main sponsor simply because of their development of battery cars, of their development of the blue technology, of their development of the fuel cells. And to have that technology and that knowledge that we can spread around the world to to the younger generation that will be driving these type of cars in the future is very important for our planet's existence.
And finally, we're here at the DLD presenting your Pangaea expedition. We've got one of your young explorers here, Alexandra. Is there any message that you would like to impart upon the people here at DLD?
I think the message I would like to send over is to get involved in an expedition like Pangaea, that we can come out and discover the beauty of the planet and together find solutions to live in a sustainable way, to conserve this most important and only planet that we can live on today for the future generation. And the only solution is to participate, to educate yourself and go out and experience it. So the invitation is open to any young explorer, any scientific, any person that wants to get involved to help us save the only world that we have, and that is our planet Earth.
Well, thank you, Mike. And thank you, Alexandra, for joining us.
Thank you.
If you want to find out more about Pangaea, you can go on the www.Mercedes-Benz Pangaea brochure. And there is one last thing that I want to share with you, because in my last speak, I was describing a world that seemed so daunting and wondering how we could possibly address all these issues. And there's no question that we have the resources and the capabilities to do so. We have the power within us to do so. And to that effect, I want to share with you what the world looked like 100 years ago. Just a few statistics to tell you how far we've gone in 100 years. And because of the exponential speed of technological advances, how far we can go within a very short amount of time. 100 years ago, the average life expectancy was 47 years old, 47 years. There were only 8,000 cars on the road and 140 miles of paved road in the entire planet. The maximum speed limit anywhere in the world was 10 miles per hour. There were more than 95% birth that took place in homes, and 90% of all doctors had no medical degree. In fact, 6% of the population the world over, and that includes especially, of course, in the Western nations, had finished or had a high school education. And back then, this is an interesting one. Heroin was available over the counter, and pharmacists said of it that heroin clears the complexion, gives buoyancy to the mind, regulates the stomach and bowels, and is in fact a perfect guardian of health. This was 100 years ago. 100 years ago, in America, any middle-aged man, black man, was born a slave. And 100 years ago, no black man could eat in the same restaurant as a white man. And if you can see what 100 years ago does relative to today, today Obama said that we have the enduring belief that we can constantly remake ourselves to fit our larger dream. Well, I believe that we all share that dream, and I believe that it's time for us to reclaim that dream, to get reconnected one person at a time, starting today. And with it, I invite you to take charge of that change that is within yourself, because we truly, all together and collectively, have the power to change the world. Thank you very much.